Good morning once again. If you're tuning in, now we get into the serious aspect of things this morning right here on KBC Channel 1. I'm Regina Manyara-Gitao. It is Entertainment Thursday, but we all pride ourselves and say that Kenya is indeed truly blessed. So if you're not born in the 70s, 60s and 50s, you might find it very difficult to understand that we have gold deposits, especially in Nyatike, which is in Migori County. But now gold mining is done in small scale, or rather what we could term as artisanal mining. Just recently, the Kenya Chamber of Mines said the Mining Act, as it is today, has erected a few bottlenecks that are hindering the business, or rather in the mining sector. And some of the barriers that have been mentioned include a hostile community reception, a complex fiscal regime at county and national levels, as well as political interference. Is this the status of the mining sector? To take us through this conversation is none other than the Principal Secretary at the State Department of Mining, Ministry of Petroleum and Mining, Mr. John Morangi Omenge. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Regina.
So much has been said about the mining sector. And, you know, when people to actually understand that Kenya has mineral deposits, especially of gold, you know, it really does, unless someone is keen or is into this business, they would not totally believe it. So how about we start off with the issue of a government had planned to undertake a geo mapping, or rather geo mapping survey, to identify mineral deposits and where they are across the 47 counties. What were the findings of this particular survey?
Thanks, Regina. The government, yes, planned and is already conducting an airborne geophysical survey. That's what it is. Initially, there were thoughts of involving external parties to support this process, but a wise decision was reached that we would carry out this survey ourselves using our own technologies and our own people, so as to ensure that we have a good grasp on the results that come out of this survey. That is ongoing. There's a multi-agency government team that is actually conducting this work. And as we speak, progress has been made in testing to calibrate using information that was already obtained previously to ensure that the system, as has now been set, is coming out well. We are comfortable with the results that are coming out. The process is ongoing. And as we get information that we require to share, I'm sure this will be shared with us as Kenyans and also with the other stakeholders that are required to use this information.
Now, what are the timelines for this geophysical survey? What are the timelines we're looking at?
We are looking at information that is coming in currently and which will come in for another 2 to 3 years. And based on that, we are also looking at some other things that we must do. And I think, Regina, it's important for us to tell Kenyans that this survey does not necessarily mean you do it today and you are here, open the way of getting the results of the minerals are here on this particular part of this country. Yes, indeed, there are certain minerals that you are able to see quickly from a survey like that, but also we need to tell the people that you need also to interpret this information. This information has to be checked through, it has to be interpreted. We also need to do ground truthing. We also need to perhaps even drill in some places so as to be able to confirm the existence of these resources. And sometimes this kind of important information has been flipped over, and we need to define that very clearly, that it is a process. There are stages that we need to go through before we are able to give out details on areas that we think have additional mineral resources. But as I said, it's coming out well.
Now, you've mentioned something, additional mineral resources, because in the early 50s, 60s, during the tenure of the past Mining Act, we had the famous Macalda mines for zinc and gold. And I'm sure we have not depleted our gold reserves or zinc. So what does our mineral profile look like currently?
It's fair to say that our country is well blessed with mineral resources across the country. The zinc, gold that you are talking about, Regina, is what you find in the ancient rocks around Nyanza and Western Kenya, where we have gold, copper that was being mined previously. As to whether these resources really got fully depleted, and at the time that the people who were mining, and this was being done during the colonial days, when they left, you can see the results of that. Many people, communities were working in those areas, and we too are working to ensure that any areas that have potential that needs to be further developed is going to be developed. We have mineral resources that are not necessarily precious metals or indeed base metals, including what is being mined at the coast. Heavy mineral sands, for example, that produce titanium that we are exporting as a country and which contributes to 2/3 of the revenues that we collect from mineral resources. We also have gemstones that are found in many of our counties. In fact, as we speak today, there is going to be opened a gem and jewelry fair at Moven Park Hotel in Westland, and we welcome people to come and see. And these are minerals that we export, and our country is an authority in matters of gemstones. We also have industrial minerals, including diatomite that is being mined in the Rift, and we are working towards improving the productions from some of these workings that have been done over the years. So we have good amount of minerals across our country, good potential that needs to be developed.
We've already established that we have potential, but yes, people who are already undertaking or rather participating in the sector do artisanal mining, or rather mining in small scale. There have been talks saying that we need to revert to commercializing, especially gold mining. You've said deposits in Nyanza and western regions. Yeah. Would this be a step in the right direction as far as increasing the earnings of these artisanal miners?
Yes. One thing that we must do, and which we are working to get done currently, is to demystify mining. Now, artisanal mining happens throughout our country, many areas. If you're driving around, you'll be able to see men and women who are actually working, cutting, even if it means aggregates, for example. So artisanal mining is happening all around our country. This is one of the most important forms of mining. And that's why we put a lot of effort in working to encourage improvement upon this mining. During the colonial days and the old act, which was of the 1940s, kind of criminalized these forms of mining. We leave it to people to judge whether this was done, because most of this mining was in the hands of our people and not in the big companies that were then being run by people who had come from outside the country. Anyway, the new Mining Act provides that we have to formalize these activities. And we are working towards doing this to enable productions of these minerals that are happening around our country to be done in the right way, with the necessary environmental licenses, necessary mining licenses and permits, and necessary safety and health permittings, so that we improve on the same. Mm-hmm. And because it's happening in many parts of our country, and this is a program that you can compare very closely with our rural electrification program when it comes to energy. The impact of the same improved all around our country is going to be very good, is going to enable our people to have improved livelihoods very quickly. Mm-hmm. Of course, we do have large-scale mining operations in our country. What we call large-scale may not be large-scale in the world standards, including the production of gold. Like in Nandi, Karebe are producing gold. In Narok, Kilimapesa are producing gold. And sometimes you don't hear of this, but we also have such. Magadi, Tata Magadi is producing soda ash that is processed and we export. These are big productions. And so our attention is not only on small productions that we have across our country, but is also in supporting the large-scale operations.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've talked about large-scale. I was down in Migori County, I think sometime in last year, following up on the story of the mining issue, especially when safety and security concerns arise. We've lost a lot of miners down those mines who, they don't have the safety gear, and, there's a process where there's a miner, there's the shaft owner, there's a land owner, and now there's a county government and the government, especially when it comes to revenue collection. This is one of the things I think the Kenya Chamber of Mines has been citing and saying that there's quite a disparity. They've said them as barriers that are hindering how mining is taking place, especially for small scale. Now, first things first, let's talk about safety of miners. Yeah. What is the government doing to ensure that these miners are safe. We practice it largely small scale.
Yeah. What is the government doing? One, we are putting together the people who are involved in mining artisanal into groups of 10 to 15 for good reasons. Reason number one, to ensure that these people have a rapid rescue team, a rapid response team that will enable us to respond whenever you have accidents in the mines. Now, if you remember, we have had accidents last year, sometime early last year in Migori, and we lost 6 people. But thereafter, we have had to put in place these RRT teams. And if you remember, the last accident that we had over Christmas, we only lost 2 people. So there is an improvement because we are able now to engage the miners themselves as part of these processes, and they link with government, national government departments that are able to provide equipment like, say, a bulldozer or an excavator that will quickly move in and provide the necessary support. And this is coordinated between ourselves. The county governments are also part of it, and the miners, as I said. 2, we are supporting these teams of 10 to 15 to draw funds from the Youth Enterprise Fund, the Women Enterprise Fund, and Uwezo Fund. Now, most interesting thing, we found that in many parts of our country, despite the government having rolled out these funds, many people who are involved in this artisanal mining did not want to take up these funds. And we have been engaging. We have teams in Kisii County, we have teams in Nyamira, we have teams in Kakamega, in Vihiga, in Taita Taveta, and in Kwale. And this is coming out very well. So as we empower them to be able to access funds, to be able to improve their capacity to depend on a system that they themselves can rely on. There's a good other reason why we are forming these teams. When you have people who are working in 10s and 15s and they are able to support each other, to provide collateral for getting more money, you can also be able to form at a higher level a cooperative structure. And we want to support this to develop SMEs, small and medium scale enterprises that are producing. And we have, for example, down in Masongo, in Kisii County, a team that is working that way. We have another team in Tabaka with soapstone. We have a team in Kakamega, and we are happy with that. We also, Regina, of great interest to you as a lady, we found that there are certain practices, cultural practices, that did not provide for women being able to mine. When
I was down in Migori, actually, and I inquired, like, if I had come with a female camera person, would she be allowed to go shoot down at the mine shaft? I was told we do not allow women down the mine shaft. Actually, the women are the ones who end up buying the gold dust once it comes up. And it's a matter of luck. You don't know what is contained into the sack until you do the amalgamation, which is a process of
which is a wrong thing, anyway,
which is,
but I will discuss that also.
Yes, that's the process that they use down there at the mine. So women are locked out generally from some activities in as far as mining is concerned. So how are you addressing that?
Yes, we did find that to be the case, for example, in Kakamega, when we went there, and the men told us that the women can't get into the shafts because if they do, the gold will not be found. And I'm an economic geologist myself, so I was like, what will happen? The gold will disappear because a woman has gone down into the shaft. I know that can't happen. So we engaged further with the men, and they graciously told us that they were concerned that there will be certain things that will befall families. And we said, okay, that's sufficiently important worry, idea, and then we need to address it. And we had a discussion, and we now formed women groups that have their own shafts. So we created 4 shafts, working with the women, working with the teams out there, and these shafts are producing gold. And it's the women who go into the shafts, Regina, and they come out with gold.
Quite
the gold
impressive.
is not disappearing.
It doesn't disappear.
No, it doesn't.
Now there's the issue, the question of heavy presence of foreigners who are taking part in the mining activities. And this has not augured well, especially with local communities who tend to feel that government, both national and county governments, are in favor of foreign investors who are taking part in mining activities. at their behest or at their expense. What do you have to say to that?
One, yes, we do have a lot of interest that has been generated around what we as a country have that we can develop as minerals. And as you will expect, there are people from outside the country who come in because they want to invest. There is a proper process for investment, though, which the government has put in place, and we want to stress that this is the way things should be done. And nobody coming from outside our country is allowed to come and start mining, to come and start working, processing of minerals, whatever in the sector, without the necessary immigration clearances. And as Principal Secretary for Mining, I have the responsibility for processing those applications that come from these foreigners. Obviously, if they don't come to me and they go out to work in the mines without those necessary permits, they are going to meet our administration, our national administration, and our officers who are at the grassroots level and who will address that problem. As soon as we find them, we get them arrested and we get them prosecuted.
Now, in regard to even earnings, there's a 2% duty. Now, let us look at the tax regime and its impact, overall impact it has on the mining sector, especially, we're really focusing on small scale because large-scale mining is corporate. They do the corporate tax and such. But now we're looking at the 2% duty. For example, in Uganda has a zero-rated all its gold trade and actually set up a refinery. How does this impact on the mining sector? Are we looking at competition in as far as gold export of gold is concerned with our neighboring Uganda, or how does a tax regime really either boost or hinder mining activities?
Thanks, Regina. First to say, it's not only just 2% that is being levied from minerals. What we do have is a scale for royalties based on the type of mineral. For gold, there is a royalty percentage of 5. And the 2% that you are talking about is what is levied for people when they are going to sell out their gold.
Yes.
If they are buying it locally, for example, and they want to sell, so they will have now to pay 2% to the government. So in total is 5 plus 2, which is 7%. And as it stands today, that is not favorable, it's not supportive of the sector, and government is addressing that. Yes.
Do we have any timelines?
Yes, these are some of the issues that we are quickly working around to deal with, because we require some changes in the law, and that I can confirm we have already started working on. In terms of competitiveness within the region, we are also developing a gold refinery in Kakamega. You must have seen. We currently are in the process of completing the feasibility study for the development of a gold refinery in Kakamega. This is a refinery that we are developing on instructions of the head of state when he received petitions from the people in Western Kenya, and he said the government will support this, and we are glad that this is now underway. The land for this has been given by the county government of Kakamega, and we are very grateful to that, for that. And the process of getting the information should be over in this month of July. And then government will be able to make a decision on the best way to invest in this particular refinery. We are also currently doing a feasibility study, which is again being completed by the end of this month, for a granite processing plant. Now this is for Vihiga. This is another of the presidential directives that we are implementing as a government. His Excellency the President was again asked by the people of Vihiga why they cannot benefit from these rocks which they have. And he graciously said the government will work to ensure that we develop a granite processing plant in Vihiga, and this we are working to complete the feasibility, and again by the end of this month a decision as to the direction of the type of plant etc. will be done. Good preparatory work that is underway. We also are doing a value addition processing plant and center for soapstone in Kisii, and this is the only deposit that you have in the world of that size, and it's a great blessing for our land, and therefore the need to ensure that we maximize on the benefit that we can get from that. And again, feasibility study is ending this month. And
so
for this value addition. Then there is the VOI, Gemstone Value Addition Center, that we have developed, which we intend to have opened this calendar year. We are equipping it. We already have some of the equipment. There is additional equipment that we are getting that delayed a bit, and this we are opening for purposes of adding value to the gemstones so that our people get better prices locally. So the government, Regina, is rolling out several initiatives to support the development of mineral resources in our country to higher levels of quality and grades, which then will fetch us more money and which will support our own people. Yes.
So what are you in the last financial year, 2018 to 2019,
yes,
just ended and we had a new budget here. Yeah. What would you say that how much did the mining sector contribute to the GDP in the last financial year? And what are the future projections at 2019 to 2020? You've said the feasibility studies are going to be completed end of July. You're going to be opening the Gemstone Value Addition Center soon. So we are looking, what projection should we wait for in terms of capital injection to the GDP from the mining sector?
Regina, there's a debate here that we will want to address and Kenyans to also partake in it the correct way. There is what we sell as minerals outside the country, which we have processes that are able to capture. We, in the last financial year, got 30 billion Kenya shillings. Now this has arisen from and this is good news, from a figure of around 12 billion coming through, 12 close to 13 billion in 2013, coming to the figure of 30 billion that we have. And this shows clearly the good work that the government has done during these years, 2013 until current. We expect that these figures will improve even more. Then there is what is not being said. All the aggregates, building materials, construction materials that you see being used in our country are being provided by the mining sector. So far, the contribution of these resources into the sector, into the GDP, has not been accredited to mining. And this is a debate that we'll want to have. So that when you ask me as Principal Secretary, who also happens to be an economic geologist, what is the contribution of mining to the GDP? I cannot fail to point out this anomaly that we need to correct.
Very well said. Now let's look at the process, the export process. You've said, yes, indeed, we are people who sell out the minerals that we've got and they sell them out. Now the issues of, there have been, several people have raised, persons in the sector have raised issues on the delays in the export process. For instance, miners are required to present gemstones photo taking before clearance. So what is being done to actually make this more efficient? Because I can imagine it poses a security issue, there are delays here, just to make it attractive for people and also time saving.
Thank you, Regina. When we came into office in 2018, March, and the Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Munyes, had come to office in February, that is one of the areas that we found which we needed to address immediately and which we have. There were delays in the processing. We now have put in place a committee that looks at and evaluates these resources when they are brought in for export and quickly provides thoughts as to what the value is. And they run up to date value, export pricing mechanism that enables them to do that. So they are in place and they respond quickly whenever we get an import request, an export request rather. Then we have also opened an office at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, actually a full-fledged regional mining office. And this is supporting the quick processing so that we do not have delays. We are looking into improving even further these activities. We have a new office at Wilson International Airport. Again, this is supporting. In terms of exports that are going through Mombasa, we have opened a new regional mining office at Likoni, full-fledged with 4 officers. This is in addition to the regional mining office in Mombasa, in addition to the regional mining office in Kwale. We have also put in place an officer who sits at the base titanium project, for example, to ensure that whatever comes out of there is properly recorded. And we have an officer who also sits at the export jetty for heavy mineral sands across in Likoni. So, and we have increased the number of regional officers in total from the previous 12 1 year ago to 23 currently, and we're adding in another 4. We also have opened border points, exit point offices. I've already talked about the one of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and Wilson. We also have an office in Namanga. We have an office in Lungalunga. We have an office in Taveta. We have an office in Busia, in fact supported by a full-fledged regional mining office. We have an office in Malaba. These are all intended to help fast-track imports and export activities that surround minerals. Yeah.
Now let's look at now the controversy. In the last few years or months, a row between corporations like Tata Chemicals and the Kajiado County government, Base Titanium versus the Kwale locals, Kenco Limited versus Kitui MPs, Karebe Gold Mining in Kakamega, Kilima Pesa versus landowners, Kenya Fluorspar Company versus the community. Some of the cases that we've had between communities and persons, or rather we call them investors or corporations in the mining sector.
Yes.
How is the government, how is your department trying to resolve this?
Thank
or
you,
rather
Regina.
dealing with this?
Thank you, Regina. When I came into office end of March 2018, one of the jobs that I was given by the Cabinet Secretary, Honorable John Munyes, was to help resolve the challenge that we had with the Base Titanium company and the community, which we did very well. We spent time and many days at the coast talking to the communities, engaging all the stakeholders, and we were finally able to resolve that, leading to issuance of an exploration license for heavy mineral sands in Vanga. And we intend to continue discussing each time whenever there are issues so that we are able to address them. Now, there are other areas that you have raised. Yes, there are issues that have come around about it. The issue of Tata Magadi went to court, and the court made a very good ruling that the company and the county government to come to the Cabinet Secretary and ourselves for discussions in resolving this matter, which we are already doing. So that is a process that is underway. We have issues that you have raised on concerning Karebe. That is a matter which is in court as we speak, but I can assure you that I have personally made no less than 4 visits. And you can imagine within the times, difficult challenges that you have in managing many activities for our principal secretary, but I've visited that place 4 times. And we have engagements with the county government of Nandi and engagements with the stakeholders, including the company, and we are hopeful that once the court has completed its process, that we will be able to be in a position to support, continue supporting mining. Mind you, Regina, Karebe is our largest single producer of gold in Kenya. So this is not a small project, and the government takes a lot of interest in ensuring that this will be resolved. And so there are the other issues that you raised. So what have we done in addition to engaging these stakeholders, discussing and saying,
because among the issues that have been brought out, that across all those discussions or those controversies, the issue of lack of inclusion, especially where the community is concerned in terms of inclusion in decision making and job opportunities within these companies, or rather these mining activities. Then there's the issue of environmental concerns that have come up. There's the issue of compensation to the land, especially where land is considered community land. Then there's the issue of CSRs. This is just some of the underlying issues that cut across all these controversies that you get.
So let me address, for example, an issue that you also raised, which is Kenya Fluorspar. The company closed in March 2018, and they closed when there was already a process to address matters of compensation. And we have continued that process. As I speak to you today, I have a full-fledged team of senior officers who are down in Kimwarer, and they are looking at the properties, they are looking at what the old mine has to offer, so that we are almost at the tail end now of resolving that matter, so that we bring in a new investor. Sadly, we have lost exports that we used to have from Fluorspar. the last 2 years, but we hope to pick up and move forward. So we are resolving this. So issues will arise, Regina. There's no way, as Principal Secretary, I can assure you that issues will not arise. Issues will arise. The question is, what are we doing in resolving those issues? That is the most important thing.
What are you
so
doing?
I've told you, for Kenya Flow Spa, we are engaging the stakeholders and we are working around it. I've already explained what we are doing in respect of Magadi. I've already explained what we are doing in respect of Karebe. And what we have done and will continue to do in respect of base titanium. And I think Kenyans need to understand, number one, there are better gains to be made from mining for ourselves. I know that there was a delay occasion for lack of fully a framework to provide for the sharing of the royalties that are coming out of the minerals in accordance to the Mining Act requirement of 70, 20, and 10%. Yes. 70 for the national government, 20% for the county government, and 10% for the communities. But good news is Treasury already has started and is putting in place, there's already a bill for the Kenya Sovereign Wealth Fund bill and policy, and we are part of that process ourselves, and our sister department from Petroleum and Kenya Revenue. What is happening is this law is being processed, this policy is being processed at the same time to enable the government to have the depository as to where the 70% for minerals will go, 75% to be earned by the national government for petroleum will go. That opens the way. We already drafted a regulation which we shared with the National Treasury because it's under the Public Finance and Management Act, which is shepherded by Treasury, and this is providing expressly for the sharing. So jointly, once we have that act for the Kenya Sovereign Wealth Fund and we have this regulation passed through, we are going to share these revenues. Why do I raise this as an important issue, Regina? Is because lack of that sharing is the one that is causing the thoughts of people like, what are the gains that we need to make? So, you know, these mineral resources are being produced, and are we gaining? We want to assure Kenyans, your money from these shares is there. The money is already being paid. Once this framework for law is in place fully, this money is going to be shared, and therefore people do not have to take recourse to other ways. And that includes, Regina, the fact that some of our county governments continue to levy cess on some of these minerals. So this cess will no longer be necessary to be levied because then they will get their rightful share in accordance with the Mining Act. And the national government, as provided for in the Constitution, will continue to be the party that addresses the management of these resources and leads as a lead stakeholder. There is another framework that we are helping put in place, the Community Development Agreement Committee framework. This is already provided for in the law, the Mining Act, and there is a regulation that provides for the same, and is one that we do not have to wait for long, except we have developed guidelines and model agreements. And we have done public participation around our country. We had 4 teams that went around. One team, for example, that went to Taita, they went to Kwale, thereafter Garissa, through Tana River. Another team that went to Kitui in Mwingi, went to Embu, went to Nyeri and Isiolo. Another one that went to Narok, went through to Kericho, to Kisii and Migori. Another team that went from Nakuru through to Nandi, to Siaya, and then Kakamega. And this process is also at the tail end. This will provide for a very clearly defined way of managing the resources. And the Community Development Agreement Framework says that communities are to benefit from development of projects that are prioritized by the same communities. And these projects are projects that are not the same as the ones being addressed by the national government or indeed the county governments. And the communities prioritize them, and the mining company is to give not less than 1% of gross revenues that are earned from the sale of minerals to support these projects. So this is additional money, Regina. I want you to see this. This is additional money beyond the one for royalty share. Look at
beyond the 10. We're going
yes,
to have not
beyond
less
the
than
10
1%
to the community, not less than
community.
1, which, by the way, Regina, happens to be the bigger figure when you calculate.
Now, as we come to a close, there's something that has really taken the coastal region by storm, the issue of the coal mining. I know it does not fall into your department, but it falls under the issue of mining, I mean, and petroleum, matters of energy. There's been talk. What do you think about the coal mining? Remember, we've been talking about climate change, matters of green energy, focusing on green energy, such and such. Coal mining, people in Lamu, especially conservationists, have come out and said that this Lamu is, World Heritage Site as per UNESCO. But hey, you want to take up mining activities, especially coal mining. This is going to affect how Lamu archipelago looks like, and also, going against what history is. So what is your take, in a nutshell? In a nutshell,
Regina, let me also clearly confirm that I've been involved in that project myself. I came out of the Ministry of Energy on appointment, thanks to His Excellency, to be Principal Secretary in mining. And I was chairman of the PIT for that project, so I know about that project. It's not coal mining in Lamu, it's actually development of a coal-fired power plant. The technologies that will be used will be ultra super critical. That means that the worries that are being expressed should not arise. You can go around the world. All the countries that we talk of, which are developed, Japan, the United States, Canada, UK, we can go to South Africa, the one that we want to emulate in our continent. Yes. They are all using coal. The issue should be the technology that is going to be used. It's not about coal-fired power generation is bad. No, it's a question of technology. Yes. Now, coal mining itself properly, yes, I'm, as Principal Secretary for Mining, expected to also guide on that, because mining is mining. Coal deposits in Kitui that are commercial were discovered during my time and shepherdship at the Ministry of Energy. I was in charge of that exploration program as chief geologist, and we discovered commercial coal deposits in 2010. So I know about it, and they also will require licensing and permitting by ourselves for them to extract. Critical again that Kenyans should not forget. We as a country have plans for power generation. Over the years, we developed and queued power plants that we will want to develop from different resources, different technologies, geothermal, and I was involved in the development of the same
renewable energy matters,
geothermal. And wind and hydro and solar, and what we can get from coal, and what we can get from gas, and of course what we can get from thermals that are petroleum-based power generation. Now, this takes time to develop. So it's not something you want to call off suddenly because of certain engagements that sometimes are not properly informed. It's something that you want to ensure works well. Growing an economy, a growing economy is like a child. You must prepare that when the child is small, this size, the clothes they will fit into will be this size. As they grow older, they need bigger clothes. So
you say in a nutshell
as we develop our country,
mining.
Yes, as we develop our country, we must remember that we look forward and develop. And we also look at what others are doing. The same people who are telling us that this is bad, what are they doing themselves in our countries, their countries? Look at these Western countries, for example. They are all using coal-fired power generation. That's what supports those economies. You can't even develop some of these other technologies if you did not have coal to give you the farm power that you need to develop. Our farm power from hydro, our big sites are gone. Our geothermal, yes, we are developing it. There will be a time when it will reach and we will not be able to develop further. So we must allow for nuclear, for example. So we must allow for a mixed form of power generation that allows us to have the flexibility to develop our economy the way we need it now. This is a child who is growing. The clothes must be fitted as the child grows, Regina.
Well, I'm not going to try and water down what Mr. PS there has said, PS Mining, but State Department of Mining there, Mr. John Morangi Omenge saying that indeed we need to be alive to the fact with what is happening with the rest of the world and get into the program, but also we need what is critical is a technology to be used and what we are using it for. We have been putting Kenya's status of the mining status into perspective. So much has come out. The issue of security concerns and safety for artisanal miners or rather small-scale miners. This is has been considered in the new Mining Act. We call it new because before it came into effect, what we had is what we used during the colonial era, but the Mining Act 2016 has had a few changes and a few reviews. Critics have come out to say, yes, it has created barriers here and there, but this morning we've had the PSR there, Mr. John Morangi, saying that everything needs to be looked with a pinch of salt and a bit critically so that we can address the issue of mining and harness its potential. The geophysical survey is ongoing, but we still can pride ourselves and say that indeed the mining sector is a great contributor to the GDP, having from the sale and export of minerals per se, earning the country in the financial year 2018 to 2019 a cool 30 billion shillings. And he says something else that needs to be addressed is that, like in the construction industry, all those items, raw materials that have been used are never attributed to the mining sector, yet they are sources of mining, or rather products from the mining sector. This is something that discussions that are ongoing in as far as mining is concerned. Going forward is that we should be looking out to new reviews and new policies that are here to harness Kenya's great potential. We have gold, we have copper, we have zinc, we even have titanium and gemstones to pride ourselves. This has been Good Morning Kenya. Now we head over to Matters Entertainment. Remember, we value your feedback. Our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1 TV. Mine is at Ray Manyara. Keep tweeting. Tell us where it is that you're watching this particular broadcast from.